Yo, what is up? Welcome to The Docket, presented by Defense Diaries, where we will be giving you just the facts. Hey, what's up, girl?
Hey, babe.
How are your holidays? It feels like I haven't seen you in weeks, man. It's crazy.
Me?
Yeah. Oh no, it's our subscribers. Yeah. Hey, what's up, y'all? We missed you. We took a nice little holiday break, recharged the batteries a little bit. Watched a lot of Monk reruns, hung out with the fam a ton, which has been awesome. Our kids are still on break, actually. And I fully anticipate them running in at some point during the middle of this live and being loud and disruptive. So look forward to that.
Having fun.
Yes. Yeah. I encourage them to stay out and have fun for as long as they wanted to, within reason, obviously. So, all right. We're getting back into this, and we're not leaning into Delphi, which has been our go-to, which of course got a huge court date coming up, the Supreme Court in January 18th to be exact. I fully plan on attending that. I fully plan on having you running a live while I'm there, because we can stream that. So it would be really cool if we could figure out how you can come to me live, like you could break away for live reports from me while you're streaming the hearing itself, because I think that it'd be really cool to be able to have your brilliant mind sitting there and giving some really, I'm sure, brilliant analysis in terms of kind of what's going on during the actual hearing itself, obviously leaving room for, the subs to be able to listen to what's going on, but you kind of giving them a heads up of what to expect beforehand. And then obviously having some discussion afterwards. And, I hope to get into the building. I know that they're lining up at 7:30 in the morning, and that's just to get in. And then there's another line. And from what I've been told from Kara, there's not a ton of seats in there. So I'm going to probably have to crash in Indiana on the 17th and get up at the crack to get over to the courthouse. But I fully intend on doing that. So, and we'll definitely have a Delphi live before that date comes. And Allie, I had told you just a quick Delphi update. Gull, was named chief judge, or was put into the position of chief judge of Allen County for the next 2 years. It is a ministerial position. We have chief judges in our courtrooms or our courthouses as well. They certainly have additional tasks. They certainly have some, how do you think that'll affect her caseload? Like, 'cause I just didn't know if, when I read it, if strategically that they kind of rallied the troops over there in Allen County and are like, look, is this a good way for Fran to be able to duck out because of her new role as chief judge? Because she does have more responsibilities. She has more duties without question. So, but I don't know if that has an impact on her caseload, but this isn't a normal case. This is a
Right.
case that could be pulling her, out of the county for weeks and weeks on end. However, at this point, without knowing what's going to happen with Baldwin and Rosie, if they do get reinstated and they move the trial date back up, obviously that will be affected. But at this point, it looks like the trial set for mid-October of next year. So she'll still be chief judge. I don't know. I don't want to get into the discussion. I just think it's interesting. There's always something going on with that case. So we'll get back to it. But I'm really excited about what we're going to get to tonight. And we are going to be discussing the streamer that we watched. You had watched the first 6 episodes back probably over the summer. And I'm talking
whenever it came out, or whenever we first realized it came out, and you fell asleep and I could not stop watching.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so old.
And then I told you needed to watch that, but you didn't.
Yeah, I know that it piqued my interest when I saw that there was a follow-up coming. And I was very interested when we were watching, and I think I just got like sucked into other things, so I kind of forgot to watch.
No, yeah, for sure, you definitely were.
Yeah, but what we're talking about is obviously the curious case of Natalia Grace, and it's a fascinatingly weird case. It's one of those cases where you've got just so many onions of the layers of the onion that you have to peel back. And it's like, it's hard to know what to think. It's because we're going to kind of go through it. We're going to give people a primer. I think that ultimately
There's
what we
probably
want,
a ton of people watching the last 2 episodes right now.
Yeah.
It just got released.
Yeah, that's for sure. The last 2 episodes with the big confrontational, finally the sit down with Natalia and Michael Barnett. That's taking place. I think that's dropping tonight, right? So we're doing multi-parts of this. So
do what you said, because there's people who don't know anything. So let's start from the beginning.
All right. So I figured kind of like the easiest way to do this, at least kind of on the front end, is I did a little bit of a slideshow. Okay. So it's going to make us small. Oh, isn't that fancy? I was doing this all day. But so what we'll do, we're going to go through, I've also done a timeline, but I want to kind of introduce the primary characters.
So let me just say before you do that, just as like a soft primer for those of you, because I see a lot of you are saying you have no idea what this is about. It's like the living real life version of Orphan. If you ever saw that movie, where there's like a crazy adult posing as a child, or isn't it? So, I mean, basically that's it. Either you've got a crazy adult posing as a child, or you've got parents, pretending that they've got an adult posing as a child.
Right. It's crazy. It's crazy. And if it sounds crazy just from that description, it gets even crazier. Okay. Because what we're dealing with is this little person right here. And when I say little person, she's a little person. So she's probably, I think, under 4 feet now, whatever age that she is, but when she allegedly is born in 2003 in the Ukraine, her name is Natalia Grace. And
I think her name at that point was,
if you can remember her actual birth name, I'll give you $5. $5 holla if you can remember her birth name. I did not dig that deep, I will admit. So for our purposes, we will just know her as Natalia Grace.
And so Bob, for those of you who might already know what you learned towards the end, I'm the one who was like, well, why don't we just like tell them? And Bob's like, are you kidding me? We've got to build up the story. So he's going to go through it sort of the way it was presented to the public, and then we'll get to what has been come out more recently in the last couple of episodes.
Yeah, and it's either like the most tragic thing you've ever heard? And thankfully, physically,
Either
she's
way,
okay.
I'm sorry. Either way, it's the most tragic thing you've ever heard. And we already know sort of the ending, but
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I mean, we kind of do, we kind of don't, you know. I mean, it's like, well, let me just get through this. All right. So basically we've got this little person, little girl. She appears to be a little girl to me right here. Born 2003 in the Ukraine. She's born with you know, many medical complications, and her birth mother is a woman that uh you know, is not financially able to be able to care for her. Like
and
she
she was
real
told at the hospital from the people that this is not a child who you want to take home. She's never going to be able to walk. Like they really pushed her to not take the child home, to give up the child.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, they really did. They're like, there's no way that you're going to be able to care for this kid, you know? So they kind of, you know, did really, I feel, push her if she's being truthful. I mean, that's part of the thing with this story is we just don't know who's making things up, who's not, you know. I mean, I think we have a pretty good indication. But again, we're teasing the story here. Don't start putting people on blast just yet.
I won't. And I just want people to know Bob and I have not seen past season 2, episode 4. So don't worry if you're out there thinking we're going to discuss anything that's been released today, because we're not.
Yeah, no spoilers for the
But
2
we will
episodes.
be back for a more thorough evaluation of everything.
Yeah, and kind of what I was saying is once we get through this, what we really want to kind of deal with is what, of course, they always skip in these documentaries is the legal process. Kind of what happened. Why is no one paying a price for this? That's what we're ultimately going to work you guys up to, but you need to know the backstory. So that's what I'm going to give you now. So these are another couple of pictures of Natalia. You know, you can see she's very diminutive, very small, and she had she has a very difficult time working because of her condition, and she's had multiple surgeries on the legs to try to help with that, but it's very challenging for her on top of being short. So these are going to be the 2 primary, I guess we'd call them antagonists.
Yes, and it
So,
is in America to have adopted her. I don't know
yeah.
if you start with the first family, but
I'm going to get through that timeline. I'm just giving pictures right now, and then we're
you're
going to get to the
introducing
time.
the people.
I'm putting names to faces. So people, so as you can see here, this is Kristine Barnett. Okay. The gal in the white blazer here, and the guy in the tan shirt here is Michael Barnett. Those are the 2 adoptive parents of Natalia in 2010, which we'll get to. And these are their 3 biological sons. Okay. One of which 2 of them have, if you're watching, you know, 2 of them must have refused to appear. And one of them, Jacob, did appear quite a bit on the documentary. Okay. And so this is going back. So this is her birth mother. This is Natalia's birth mother. Okay. And this is the gal who gave her up in the Ukraine, and she ends up getting adopted in the US. Okay. And I'm going to go back to that picture. All right. So these are because that's kind of a good picture. So this is the guy that you look, if you watch the first series or the first season of this is basically the look that I saw like on Michael Barnett's face, like constantly. Just this look of, I didn't know, like as I'm watching it, you just don't know how to judge this guy. He's so hard to read because he seems like he's so animated. You know, he's crying constantly. Allison's like, there's no tears. He's not crying. This guy's full of shit. You know, like
comes off extremely emotional and like initially, like just an emotional person who is really presenting this, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but he's a real piece of shit.
Is that your legal conclusion of this?
That's my legal conclusion.
All right. Okay. So then here we have Kristine Barnett, his wife, his then wife. And this is a very nice picture that I scooped from her LinkedIn, looking very professional, really ready to take on the world. And then this is where she's not looking so great. This is her mug shot, but I'm jumping ahead a little bit. And this is Natalia now, or in 2020 when they filmed this. I think there was even some filmed in 2021, maybe even 2022.
I mean, I'm sorry, but just the difference of her now versus then says she was a child.
Oh, thank you, Kasha. I'm glad she threw it up there, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce the exact condition. It's too bad Kasha's not on, because she would nail it. She's in the medical profession. So, but that's exactly what she has. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So, and here's just another picture of Natalia. Okay. So now we're going to kind of get into, this is the actual timeline. So, and I want to do this so y'all, because like when we were watching it and Allison and I were taking our notes and doing our research, and we're like, oh my God, we had to keep rewinding. I'm like, what date was that? What date was that? And oddly enough, I mean, Allison, of course, as always, did a huge amount of work today, getting documents, actually having to call like law offices to try to get these documents that we have. They weren't readily accessible. She was able to pull some of the dockets. She was also able to talk to a couple of the attorneys, and so she was able to gather some documents, which we're going to go over later in the live. But we want to be able to give you the timeline, because it was tough for me to kind of keep track of what happened when, and all of that matters. Okay, so in 2003, Natalia is born to Anagava in Ukraine. I put a question mark there because that's still the $1 million question. Is the kid 9 or is she 22? It's crazy. It's crazy. All right, so how do I get rid of this slide thing? Maybe I don't know how to do that. Wait, see, I'm good techie, but like I can't get rid of that. Do you see that slide thing?
What are you talking about?
On the timeline, do you see where it says slide 13? Oh, good. All right, good. Okay, so here, as you can see, the timeline 2000. Why don't you read the timeline, babe?
Okay, so in 2008, Gary and Diane. Yeah. Okay, Diane. What is it? Cachone?
I mean, it depends on who you ask. I would pronounce it, as an Italian guy, as Ciccone. Hey, the Ciccones. Come on in, have some meatball. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the Ciccones adopted Natalia from the Ukraine, and she had some behavioral issues, caused them to put her up for adoption.
Okay, very good. All right, slide 14.
But even before that, can we tell them this, or do you get into that?
If you want to fill in gaps, I did the broad stroke. So anything that you want to fill in.
They, before they put her up for adoption, they started going to little people conventions, trying to pawn her off on other little people. And she'd spend a lot of time with these other families or, couples, little people couples. And then when they wouldn't pony up the money that the Ciccones wanted, they just said, no, we're not doing it with you. And then they eventually put her up for official adoption, as opposed to just trying to do it like under the table at a convention. And that brings us to 2010, when Michael and Kristine Barnett adopt Natalia, and they reside in Hamilton County, Indiana.
Yeah, and somebody was telling somebody in David Gray in the chat noted that Hamilton County is the wealthiest county in Indiana. So yeah, I mean, the Barnetts appeared to have cash. Oddly enough, I mean, we know where some source of the money comes, but I really never got a grasp on what Michael Barnett did for a living.
No, but also oddly enough, when all of this was going on with the courts, when we get to the courts, Kristine Barnett is deemed indigent, and her lawyers are court appointed.
Right. Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, we'll get to that. I have a slide special about Kristine's cash. All right, so I threw this one in here.
During a trip to Disney, the Barnetts claim that while bathing Natalia, they discover she has genital pubic hair. So this was like, you know, in the first episode in the first season, this is the father, Michael, describes his wife screaming out, "Oh," while she's giving Natalia a bath and claiming that right then and there, Natalia had pubic hair. Now, again, this is 2010, but you'll see as this goes on, she doesn't start telling people about the actual pubic hair until 2012, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, all right, yeah, we'll get there. All right.
Oh, so you did just jump to the end here.
No, this isn't the end. This is 2010.
I know, but we don't learn this till the end. That to me is the end all be. Oh, this is the endocrinologist that.
Yes. So they go like this isn't the DNA one. This isn't
the dentist either.
This is not the dentist either. This is an endocrinologist. The DNA thing is
we find out later in the new season that the Barnetts really had reason to know this child's age all along, because as a part of the adoption, Natalia was examined by an endocrinologist who determined that she was between 9 and 11 years old. And this is documentation that went to the Barnetts when they got her in the first place.
Exactly. That's why I included that. Okay. And then we go to 2011. I wanted to stick this little jewel in there.
So Kristine Barnett signs a book deal and gets an advance of $600,000. The subject of her book is her son, Jacob. Now, Jacob is special needs. He had autism. She ran a special needs school / daycare. So she basically took credit for making her son a genius, and that she was like able to take special needs children and make them into geniuses. So she was working on this book in 2011.
Right. And so this book was obviously a huge, like the advance, like she gets the dough, like she got the money. Now, I can't remember if it was in the next 4, the ones that are currently airing now, where Michael is talking about he never saw a dime of that money. Okay, like so any money that Kristine,
was $600,000 that she got during their marriage, which he said she put in a special account she used. He was expected to provide for the family. Her money that she made was her spending money, but he had no idea how much she made from the sale of the book because they were divorced at that point.
Right. So, well, I don't know if because the book they were married in 2011.
They were when she got the advance. They were, and he said she put that in her own account, and that was her money. But he didn't know what she made from.
Oh yeah. I don't imagine a whole bunch. You know, she'll probably make a bunch now. Ironically, people will like hate purchase the book just to like trash it. You know, like they'll buy it to do a horrible Kindle review. Yeah, I bought this woman's book and it sucks. But yeah, no, I found it interesting because not only did Michael not see a dime of that, but the subject matter of the book himself, Jacob, didn't see a dime of it either. And that was part of the deal, at least to Jacob's understanding, is that she was to sock away a percentage of that money. And then when he hit majority, he was going to be given a portion of that cash. He says he's never seen a nickel. So kind of just goes with who we come to learn who Kristine is as a human being. All right. So now we're starting to get into the nitty gritty.
In 2011 and 2012, Barnett started informing friends, neighbors, doctors, CPS, law enforcement, attorneys, and anyone that will listen that Natalia is trying to kill the entire family and that she is a sociopath.
Right. And so they spend an awful lot of time on this in the first 6 episodes of the series. Like they are interviewing the neighbors, they're interviewing anybody that will talk to them in order to, in the way that they kind of do it in the documentary, like all documentaries, in order
to. They're not sure. Is the kid the sociopath trying to kill people, or what is really going on? I mean, through the entire first series, it's you never get a full, real understanding of what the truth was, and you know, was she the orphan killer, orphan child, or was she a victim?
Right.
Or
But
was she both?
what I was gonna say is that, you know, like how documentarians do it is when they get into the final edit, you know, they're front loading all the terrible stuff. You get the brooding, dramatic music, you know, a little bit like horror themed music, the pictures of, you know, these pictures, they appear to be selfies of Natalia kind of looking like nefarious, you know, when they're telling these stories about how, you know, she tried to poison Kristine with the pledge, and how they woke up and she's standing at the edge of the bed with a knife in her hand, you know. So like, I mean, they're creating that suspense for us in the documentary early on. And then because they really they milk it, but then they have Beth Karras like kind of is like the equalizer. You know, they'll have her like they'll go to her, they'll cut to her, and they'll have clips of her calling bullshit like on everything that they were doing and saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she definitely does that, and
Yeah.
she's got access to a lot of the records.
Right. Exactly. All right. And so then this is where we get some
So the
definitive.
mom in 2011, in May of 2011. So this is what, a couple months after they adopted her, right?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty quickly.
She takes her to the doctor, and she's talking more about how mature she is and that she doesn't think she's of age. What wasn't of note is that she didn't say, and she's got pubic hair, or and she's, you know, has her period. But in any event, they had this Dr. Gosweiler perform an examination to determine her age. And to me, this is the end all be all of the question anyway. He said that she, uh, oh, I had
The
did you want to put
breakdown.
up, no, did you want to put up his findings?
Well, did you send it to me? I didn't put it in I didn't put it in.
All right,
His findings are written right there.
We're gonna do the plan is to do a full, you know, once on the next two episodes, we're gonna do a full live of this. We're gonna incorporate the questions that you guys all have, so that we've got some answers for it from the legal perspective mostly as well. So this is a primer for that. So anyway, he stated she looks young, but she speaks as if she's much older. However, the x-rays show that Natalia has 12 baby teeth remaining, which would put her in the 8 to 9-year-old age range. Now, this is not disclosed until Natalia speaks. So this is not something anybody knew during the whole first series, where you're like, is she a kid? Isn't she a kid? Is she an adult? Isn't she adult? That question, this doctor's report to me answers the question. She was a child. She was a child, no matter what. Maybe she was a year or so older than her birth certificate. You know, maybe she was exactly what she said she was. But the parents hid this. They hid this throughout everything that they did, as we get into more of the story, in claiming that she was an adult.
Yeah, for sure. And this is where I'm going to go back to this picture. Okay. So this is her, and they give the dates down there. Can you read them? I can't see them, babe.
One's 2009.
Right. Well, it's Halloween and Christmas of the same year. And you can clearly see she's lost a tooth on the picture on the left. And her adult tooth appears to have grown in by Christmas to some extent. So, I mean, she's losing teeth, like including her front teeth.
Right. She's 6 and 7 there, I think. That's my
right.
opinion.
So, I mean, if that's 2008,
2009.
2000, right? So that would be 6 years old, right? Because like if we're to believe her birth certificate from the Ukraine, so which had her being born.
She can't be much older than that with her
I mean, like, I don't know any, like, and I'm not a dentist, I'm not a doctor, but I don't know how you overcome this. You cannot fake baby teeth. You know, you just, there's no way to do it. Now, you and I, before we came on, I had a discussion with you that one of the things that kind of like stuck with me, like when I was thinking about it, is we know when we're thinking back about the timeline, if she's born in the Ukraine in 2003 and she doesn't get adopted by the Chicones until 2008, she spends 5 years in orphanages, in various orphanages in, let me finish, in the Ukraine. And when she gets there and when you hear her speak, I don't I don't detect any semblance of a Ukrainian accent at all. I mean,
So,
she seems to me to be speaking perfect English, which I cannot reconcile.
so the way I've reconciled it, and I was going to do some research, but I suspect that there are orphanages where these kids are being groomed to go to the United States. So it is very possible that they are learning English in the orphanage because that's where they can make money selling the children to families in the United States.
Okay, that's legit. That's legit. I mean, do you think that that's such a brisk business that they're doing? Like, I mean, look, we know that like touristy type countries, like when Mexico was becoming a very big tourist country, and like some of the more recent, like the Dominican, that you know it became mandatory for the kids in school to be taught English because it's their number one source of income is tourism. So that trade and the number one provider of jobs in some of those countries. Do you think in the Ukraine that this was such a, because ultimately, you know, I mean, it's got to boil down to that. Do you think it was a mandate that they were making so much money from adoptions of Ukrainian children? Like I hear about Chinese kids getting adopted all the time. I don't know that I heard that the Ukraine was a big factory for adopting kids. I mean, it's certainly a viable explanation, but
I mean, I
I'm
think it's I personally believe that she came from the UK. I personally believe the DNA test showing that's her mother. She came from the UK, but I did find very
the
strange.
UK or the Ukraine.
I'm sorry, the Ukraine.
She ain't
I found
British.
very surprising and troubling this whole, the whole no accent English speaking, very quickly scenario. And that to me seems like a very viable explanation. And when you asked me earlier, I was like, I'm troubled by this too. And it just sort of dawned on me that that's a very likely scenario because even if it's not as often as China, they know it's a money making, you know, program. If you've got the children there, they could have volunteers, from America that come in and work at orphanages or whatever the case may be. But I feel
Well, let
confident
me,
on my speculation. Again, this is all
well, of
speculation here.
course, of course.
Right.
Yeah. Like, but let me ask you this. So, you know, people that have come to America, I mean, like that were born in other countries and they come, like, even if they're taught the language, they're being taught English as a second language by typically, I mean, maybe they had an American there, but more likely than not, it was Ukrainians. So they still have the accent of their origin country. You know, I mean, think about anybody that comes from like a Spanish speaking country and then moves to America that is very proficient in terms of knowing the language or but they maintain the accent from their origin country. She had zero semblance of it. It's very weird to me. Like I get what you're saying, but I still think that there would have been like a hint. I get like that was the thing I kept listening for. I'm like, where is this girl's accent? Like I don't get it. It's a thing with me. Like I hear you. I acknowledge your potential answer to that question. However, I'm not 100% sold on it. The teeth thing is big. It's big. The missionaries, Bob. That's what they're saying. The missionaries.
And
Maybe
here, I don't know. I guess I'm not logged in, so I can't click on this, but there's a comment here. It's at 8:05. Many foreign orphanages neglect the children, especially verbally. She probably had limited language prior to learning English. I'm a school psychologist and have seen this with adopted students.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. I mean, that could be, that's more viable. But I mean, she seemed to have a really good grasp of English. By the time they start filming her, like when we see the first videos of her, I would never know that that child was born and spent the first 5 years of her life in the Ukraine. I'm going to leave it at that. Like, I mean, I hear what people are saying. Something's weird about it though. Like, so, I mean, that's part of what makes this thing so fascinating to me is like, there's these inconsistencies that I just can't like wrap my mind around. All right. So let's get back to the timeline. So we were at Gosweiler. Okay. So now we're going to jump to 2012.
So before they do this, they have her committed to the hospital. They do this thing where they take her to, like an outing with the kids. And they said that they hadn't been taking her out because she was so dangerous and they had to keep an eye on her and they had to keep her on lockdown. And every doctor, psychologist, and everyone said, you've got to keep this kid under your watch every moment because your family is in danger and everybody is in danger. Sorry, we can't help you. But in any event, so they go out on this family outing to a place that has barbed wire fencing around it, and they have to sign a waiver that, you know, they're aware that there's this, electric fence, barbed wire electric fence that surrounds the property. So Michael goes through this whole story about how he left, that Natalia stayed back with Kristine, the mom, and him and the boys left because it was one of their son's birthday and they didn't want Natalia ruining it. And Natalia stayed back with the mom. And the mom says that Natalia tried to kill her by forcing her into the electric fence. This child is miniature.
3 feet, if that.
There is no way in any world where she could have done this. So they call the police, they call a hospital, and they're basically trying to get her arrested for murder, for attempted murder, or whatever the heck they're trying to get done. But instead they take her, to get looked at. And when they interview the people from the establishment, he's saying the mom was way out of sorts. The daughter seemed to be just sitting and calm. And when Natalia speaks on it later, she says that her feet were hurting and she couldn't walk anymore. So she like sat on the ground, and then Kristine tried to get her to stand up and she fell back down, and then they both fell down. And yes, they were near the electric fence, but so it wasn't completely made up, as Bob likes to say, out of whole cloth, but it was, blown completely out of proportion in an attempt to get her taken away at that point.
Okay.
And then when that doesn't work, they have her committed to this hospital.
Right. So, and if you've watched the series, they were able to get a few nurses, I think. I don't believe they got any doctors from the hospital, but I think that they got a few of the nurses that were willing to come on anonymously. And they seemed to confirm that she had pubic hair. And when they said pubic hair, initially my mind went to like a single pubic hair. Like she had like one pube that just like boink stuck out. And then it became clear what they were saying is she had like a bush, like full blown pubic hair. Like, I mean, that seemed to be what they were saying. And then a couple of the nurses said that she had full grown breast and, that she was sexually explicit in the way that she spoke to the adult patients when she was moved, which we'll get to on the next slide, why she was moved from the children's wing to the adult wing, but that her interactions with the male patients, the adult male patients, was shocking to them. You know, that it didn't seem to be, you know, it didn't seem to be in line with her being an 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid, you know. So
when Michael was interviewed, he claims that that Natalia had to be taken out of the mental hospital because the staff said she was in danger with as sexually explicit as she was and how she was being with the men. They had no way to protect her. The men were dangerous. The men weren't good with kids, let alone girls. And she was causing trouble and problems, and they had to take her out. We can't keep her anymore. She's got awful. But then you hear from, is it Beth Karras, you said, babe?
Yeah, Beth
Karras, who is a lawyer, and I think she appears often on Court TV, but she says that they released her from the hospital telling the Barnetts there's nothing wrong with her. We don't have to medically treat her. There's we can't just keep her here.
Right. I mean, they saw no they said they couldn't give her medication. They said they couldn't diagnose her with anything, you know, and it's like one of these things. But like, you know, one of the problems with the documentary is that we're given short little, probably 5-second vignettes of documents, right? Where they'll show us portions of medical documents. Like I'm dying if it's possible, because the prosecutor, after the fact, decided to release all the evidence that they had in order to try to prove their case, which included the medical records. Like I'm dying to dig in, just because I know what documentaries do. You know, they just, when they're trying to craft a story to make it a way that's going to sell and get people to watch it, they fudge the truth. They push it in ways, we know it. I mean, we're covering the Avery thing, and we know how much they butchered that case in making a murder, and they did the same thing in convicting a murderer. They both had agendas. You know what I mean? And it's not unusual. And like, do I think it's shitty that documentarians do that? Yeah, I do. I think it's unethical that they do that. I mean, a documentary is supposed to be a fly on the wall. You know, you're not supposed to impact anything that's going on in any way, shape, or form. And you're literally just supposed to be recording everything. And then you can go back.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I think that the mother was coaching the kid to behave that way, or teaching the kid to behave that way. I don't know if you have a slide on this, but there was an interview with a quasi, a musician who's a little person, who Kristine Barnett, the mother, reached out to, started online flirting with, and then literally offered up her daughter to him. I'd like you to take Natalia on a date. Right. Or I'll have Natalia be with you. We're going to have these text threads as part of the final live that we do on this. We're going to have those for you guys to see.
Yeah. And I mean, kind of I'm not trying to get a copyright strike, so that's why I didn't pimp a bunch of IDs clips. I mean, I'd love to be playing some of this stuff, but you know, with Max and ID, they would shut it down immediately. So I wasn't going to mess with it. You know, but yeah, so he was an interesting character, and it was worse than that. It was she was pimping herself out first. And then as she continues to chat with this guy, she's like, "Oh, I'm going to keep texting you. You're pretty good looking for, you know, a little person. I just think you look normal." You know, all her, you start to learn about who this gal Kristine is. And, you know, she leaves a lot to be desired.
World's best mother, runner of the special needs children's school. Amazing human being. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So this is a long one. All right. So this takes place while it's simultaneous to while she's in LaRue.
And this is up for debate as well. But Michael Barnett claims that the Barnetts, on the advice of Detective Klaus, hire an attorney Michelle Jackson or Mikkel.
Who names Michelle?
Who names their kids so close to Michael Jackson? Anyway, to petition
maybe a huge Michael Jackson fan.
To re-age Natalia. Marion County judge grants the petition without a hearing and re-ages Natalia to the age of 22. Natalia, in the eyes of the law, was now born in 1989 as opposed to 2003. Her birth mother was only born 3 years before this. So have that in perspective.
Right. Like that to me is big as the dentist talking about the baby teeth was big to you. When they finally get what's her name, Anazawa, when they get her, they finally like get her. They find her, they send, the cops go over there, they're talking to her, they interview her. I think ultimately she's deposed, but like she's deposed during the war on Ukraine by Russia. So like they literally have rolling blackouts. So like during that deposition, like her feed gets cut off because, the country's under attack. And, and they're asking her questions and she's like, I have no reason to think like she has no reason to be lying about anything other than I can't think of a reason. No. Like why would this woman lie about it?
Right. And of significance is that the statute in Indiana, if you adopt a child, you are legally responsible for them beyond the age of 18, but till they're 21.
Right.
So 22 is the magic number where they no longer have any legal responsibility for her in their minds anyway. So I guess go to the next.
Right. Okay.
So right after she gets released, so this says after Natalia has been re-aged and released from the mental facility, the Barnetts rent Natalia an apartment in Hamilton. No.
Yes.
Yeah? Yes. Hamilton County, the first one?
Yeah.
For a year. The lease does not review because of complaints from the other tenants. So they bring her back from the hospital. They keep her there, I don't know, a very short period of time. And all of a sudden they go and they put her in her own apartment alone. They leave. She's gone. This child is living on her own with like the little bit of food they give her and no, having never lived on her own before, even if they think she's an adult, they still know she's not capable of this. They know she is not capable of this. It's disgusting. And the mom teaches Natalia, trains her to say, hi, I might look young, but I'm 22. And she tells her to tell people she's dangerous and she thinks of hurting people and, and things like that.
Yeah. And it's like, again, when you're watching, yeah, but it's definitely Hamilton County. I pulled this right from the defense.
All of the other tenants were like, that's the kind of car your father drives and you're in this shithole.
Right. But it's like, it's worse than that. Like in terms of not only did they leave her without any mode of transportation, because obviously she's a little person and she's 8 or 9, but I mean, theoretically, she could go get a driver's license if she had a retrofitted vehicle. So she's got no way to get anywhere. She has no way to get food. She has no money. They put her in an apartment that is not suitable for a little person. She can't reach anything. Like everything is a nightmare, so the kid is not bathing. Like they're interviewing the neighbor. She's like, she smelled terribly. You could tell her hygiene was terrible. And it wasn't like, like that's the thing where you start to realize that this is a kid, she doesn't know how to do anything. Like you were saying, she doesn't know how to take care of herself. She doesn't know how to do laundry. She couldn't even reach the washing machine or the dryer if they're top loaders. Like nothing. You can't do any. She doesn't know how to cook. So they leave this kid like dropping by infrequently to bring food and staying for like 10 minutes. There's the one story where Kristine allegedly goes over there, and this is at that apartment, asking her, which we find out in the Natalia Speaks, the current episodes, when we're hearing Natalia's side of this. Because remember, the first 6 are all the Barnett side of this story.
Well, Michael, and I guess.
Yeah, well, you look right. Like you never hear
Michael.
Yeah, we never hear from Kristine ever, which is telling, or smart. I mean, if she's following advice of counsel, then, I mean, we'd be telling her to shut up. Shut up. Don't say anything. Shut your mouth. Don't talk. But in the next 6, this is all Natalia's side of it. So we're getting the other side of the coin in these. And, she tells a story of a situation. One of the few times that Kristine showed up at this little hellhole apartment, and, she had been given 3 scripts. They didn't say what she was taking. I'm assuming they were some kind of psychotropics, and Natalia says, I took my pills. I got up like I did every morning. I had the 3 pill bottles. I took my 3 pills, which I'm thinking, like, we can't even get our 11-year-old to swallow pills. Like swallowing, like little things like that. Like I think about, like my grandmother, like is a 60-year-old woman before she passed away from leukemia, crushed her pills because she could not swallow pills. Kids,
I was thinking about that too. How
kids don't swallow pills. So she tells the story how that before Kristine had gotten there, that she had taken her scripts, and that Kristine gets there and doesn't ask her anything, no hugs, no, like the one thing that is indisputable is there was 0 affection coming from Kristine. Like before we even get to the abuse, just just the lack of affection, which is his own form of abuse, and in any way, shape, or form. Like before we get to the physical abuse, like that's just beyond. Like I don't know how humans exist like that in the world. But so she gets there and immediately starts grilling her. Did you take your prescription? Did you take your medicine? And Natalia says, I did take it. And she says, well, why are you sleeping? So, cause Natalia said she took her meds, fell asleep. Like, I mean, the kid doesn't have shit to do. She's sitting there watching a TV all day, doesn't know anybody, like creeping on her neighbors all the time because she's bored as hell. I mean, could you imagine like being 8, being left alone in a park? Like when I think about that, when I think about and I always put it in relation to my kids, like I could never, I can't even contemplate leaving, like, let alone an 8-year-old, but like Scarlett, like just like we rent an apartment and we'd say, here, Scout,
bye.
Yeah, take care now. We'll drop some groceries off like in a few weeks. Good on you. Good luck, man. Have fun. And we just leave. Like without a phone, with no way to communicate. It's like everything is insane about it. So she says that she was sleeping. Kristine immediately says, I think you're lying. I don't think you took your meds. I think I just woke you up. I think you were sleeping this whole time. So she forces her to take another dose. And Natalia, the way she tells the story, says, well, when I'm trying to put the pills down, Kristine turns away or is on a phone call or something, but she's not watching. She turns back to me and she says, where are the pills? She says, well, I took them. And Kristine says, no, you didn't. You didn't. You're lying. Like you didn't take the pills. There's no way you took pills. And so she says, and she dumps like a third dose, which would be a third dose in her hands. Again, we don't know what they are. And she stands there and watches her digest the pills and then leaves, like just takes off. And, and then Natalia talks about how she's just like immediately within like 15 minutes, like dizzy and like nauseous and in the bathroom.
We don't know how long it really, it really was, but
she said it was pretty quickly. I mean, she said she went right to the bathroom. Like
I know, but she was a child, so it may, the time may seem.
I mean, does it matter?
It doesn't. That's what I was saying. I didn't want anyone, because there's a lot of people in here that are saying that they think she's an adult. I don't know if they don't know about the dental records and the DNA test, but
Yeah, we should have probably given people a bit of a spoiler alert that we'd be talking about, because like coming out of that first season, you know, they sold it. They sold it like it's potentially true that this kid's a monster, and that these poor parents were like, oh my God, these people, like what a nightmare. You know, but when then you look at the plot of The Orphan, like you were saying in the beginning of this thing, it's like identical. It's like everything that they claim that happened is like the same shit that was happening in that movie. It's crazy.
And the
All right,
prescription medication was, my understanding, like psychotropics, because they're taking her to doctors saying she's threatening to kill us, her family. She wants to burn the house down. She's trying to kill people. She hears voices, you know, and there is some, you know, there was a 911 call while she was at this first set of apartments where Natalia calls 911 and says, I'm stalking my neighbors and I think about hurting him or her. I don't know. That might be something that she speaks on in the next 2 episodes, or might not. You know, but it's, you know,
it's hard to know. Yeah, I mean, T-Pain, she's like, she ain't feeling it, man. She thinks this kid's like full of shit. But
No,
T-Pain hasn't watched like any of the Natalia side of it, so like they definitely fill in gaps. Like they definitely, and Beth Karras is really hammering away at the Barnetts in this thing. In the next set of episodes. So it's pretty.
And it comes out that the mom was beating her regularly and intensely.
Yeah, I mean, like it sounds like it was like 2 or 3 times.
Well, 3 times. Well, now 3 times.
Look, I mean, 1 time is too many, but like,
right, but that's all Michael saw with his own eyes. She was home with her all day.
Well, they asked Natalia, and she only recalls the one beating with the belt. Like we see this crazy scene with Michael where he's like, oh, you got to move the camera back. You got to move the camera back because I have to demonstrate exactly what was going on. And he proceeds, you know, the documentary guys move the camera back, and he stands up, and in like a complete psychopath, he gets up and starts like he's on the floor and he's punching the floor with all of his might, like 15, 20 times, like with all his might. He's like, he gets up, he's like, oh my, it's like the weirdest thing I've ever seen. That guy's unhinged, man.
He's unhinged.
I'd love to have him on though, unhinged or not. Hey, if you're out there, Michael, I want to have you on, buddy. He knows how he looks in that. Like he said it. He's like, you know, everybody who's watching this thing is going to think I'm a monster. And, you know, I mean, it's hard not to. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So this is where it gets like, this is where basically it's the beginning of the end right here.
So they move her into a new apartment in Lafayette, Indiana, where, I mean, it is a horrible neighborhood, crime riddled.
I want you to read the thing that I put up.
All right. In 2013, the Barnetts find Natalia's second floor walk up in Lafayette, Indiana, which Kristine affectionately refers to as the white trash capital of the world.
I mean, and that comes out during Michael's trial. like that's published in the newspaper during his trial, that his wife called Lafayette, Indiana, the white trash capital of the world, which is, you know, where he's being tried. So, but I'm jumping a little bit ahead. So this place is like uninhabitable for Natalia. Like it's when I put it, it's a walk up in there because there's somewhere between 19 and 30 stairs.
I mean, she cannot walk. They never gave her proper shoes. They never got her little walkers. They never did any of the things that this child needed. And if you want to think she's an adult, so be it, what this adult needed. But she wasn't. She was a child. Like literally not capable of taking care of herself, getting into her place. It was insane. And then is this the next slide before I say it, that then they moved to Canada?
Boop.
All right. So the Barnetts moved to Canada in order to facilitate Jacob's advanced education opportunities. Natalia is left in her hellhole apartment. So there's some confusion to me as to whether Michael ever actually moved there, but
it sounded like not really. Like it sounded like she went up, took the boys, and was like really discouraging him from coming. Like at that point, I think she was done with him. You know
I
what I
think she
mean?
was saying not coming back. I think that somehow something happened. He left. She exaggerated some story about him being abusive, and like he's not allowed to come back to Canada. And very conveniently, she in her criminal defense, when I know we haven't even gotten to this yet, but she claims an alibi.
Right.
So, you know, um,
This is
but
true.
Jacob
Like
was a
that particular
genius.
slide, I really wanted you to read because, like, it was the whole white trash capital of the world thing. To me, it was like such a like what a
Talent,
way to endear yourself with a jury pool, just like shitting on an entire
right, but also
city.
speaks to them intentionally putting her in a shithole where they think it's the white trash capital of the world that they
Like, well,
abandoned her.
exactly. Like she's like, no one's gonna care there. Like when
Right.
they, when you're watching the second set of episodes, it's like they're sitting out like in the front of that house and you start hearing gunshots. Like it's crazy. Like to think of this little person. And like you said, she's either a little person who's 20 and very disabled and in need of a lot of assistance, cannot live on her own, or she's a child who's massively disabled who needs a ton of assistance. Like either way, she's always disabled. Like she's always going to need assistance to live. Like she's not in a position to where she's ever going to be able to live on her own, like without some kind of assistance, unless they have the money to build her like a completely retrofitted house that, like where everything's short and she can get around and, but it's still like she just needs help. So it's like whatever the case may be, wherever you fall on it. And I agree with Allison. I think unequivocally she's a kid. I mean, there's still things that stick in my craw a little bit, but it's hard to not think.
I think it's possible that she is 2 years older than
that's still a kid though. No.
right.
Like like okay, 2 years. Okay, so instead of 9, she's 11. She's like
Right.
she's
But
a child.
I still think she was actually born when it says she was born, but worst case.
Right. I mean, all right. So now I skip. So, but the one thing that we didn't mention, so she's in this apartment in Lafayette, not for very long, because at least if as I'm remembering the story, she's in the market with her link card. They gave her a link card, say, okay, here's what you go to the store with to buy food. So she's there, probably poor little thing, can't even push a cart. I mean, could you imagine her? How is she pushing a food cart? There's no way in hell she can reach the handles of a food cart. There's no way. So, but she's in there, and this woman, Mrs. Mann, is in there shopping. She sees her. Obviously, this woman, like this family's got 5 or 6 kids that I think they adopt, and like they just take kids in. They a wayward home for lost souls. They bring the kids. It kind of like we are. We always take wayward souls in. But she's like, like I've got to help this kid. So she helps her. They fill up the cart, and she's like, you know what? Where are you staying? And she's like, oh, wait, what? Where are your parents? Wait, what? Wait, you're living in that? What? So she says, come to our house. And the kid never leaves. Like once she goes to the man's house, she never leaves there. And I think she was only in that Lafayette place for like a few days. For like that was the one who kind of gave me a little pushback on. But I think they said that it was only like 3-4 days she was in that apartment, like before she went to go, like get the food. And then at that point, moving forward, she's been with the Manns, and she's still with the Manns. Like from 10 years, she's been with them. But what happens in the interim, because one of the things that happens when you have a disabled child is you get what's called SSID, Social Security Disability Insurance, so that they get paid by the state. So that money, apparently Mrs. Mann says, okay, well, we're taking care of you. You're living with us. I'm going to take you Social Security, administration, and we're going to change the beneficiary of your SSID to us, which they do. So Michael notices immediately, because he was using the money that he was getting from that to pay the rent, to pay the electric, to pay the gas. And, he realizes the money's not coming into his direct deposit. He's like, what's going on, man? Where's all that cash, dude? So he calls, finds out that it's been transferred to a different person. He then follows up. Like, they didn't really get into that conflict. Like, there had to have been some kind of conflict between Michael Barnett and like the Manns, right? Like, you would imagine that he would call and be like, yo, what's up? What happened? Like, what's going on? Right.
Well, even before they even get to the Manns, Michael the father would go over to the first apartment and literally wipe her cell phone clear of all of her contacts. So she couldn't call for any protective services. She couldn't call the police. She couldn't call the neighbors, and he did that multiple times. And when they moved into the new house, Kristine didn't turn on the electricity. She had no power. She had no food. She took her phone. Actually, Michael there's text messages between the two of them where Michael's like, you turned off her phone. You turned off the electricity. So, she's trying to put herself in Canada. Like, I got nothing to do with this over here. But meanwhile, she's doing this. And this is Michael and Kristine Barnett.
Yeah. Right.
So the Manns have her Social Security signed over to them, like Bob said, which triggered Michael to know he wasn't getting that money anymore. And they showed some calls and said that Kristine was screaming and yelling and telling Natalia to go home and telling the Manns to butt out, and they just hung up on her, and then they filed in 2015 to get guardianship, which didn't end up working. But
yeah, no, and like, this is what I'm saying. Like, Shay, same. Like, that's what I mean, that they can steer these documentaries to push our emotions one way or another, depending on what they're going to show us and what light they're going to couch it. And I felt the same way, like going into the trial, which is frankly, like, I skip ahead to 2019. Okay. Because remember, babe, this is just like an overview. Like, we're not getting into all the dirt, like every single detail. I just want to give everybody an overview. And like you said, when we do the next couple episodes, it'll be much more filled out in terms of, some more of the kind of the nitty gritty. And like, if people have legal questions, we'd love to answer those, because of course, Allison and I, like, this is the part that was the most interesting to me. Like, okay, like they're coming after these guys. Like somebody, they had this Davenport cop, like, who somehow, I don't know if it was through CPS, but he got involved with it in some capacity, and he took an interest in the case, and Davenport really spent a lot of time digging into Natalia. I mean, he went over to the Ukraine, for God's sakes. I mean, the guy, he investigated it, and he was really trying to do right by this kid. And, I appreciated that, I mean, like, he has, I mean, he didn't know that this was going to be some kind of worldwide phenomenon, like, in terms of like a documentary. It's kind of like, you never know it's going to be that thing. It's like Avery's didn't know Making a Murderer was going to become what it became. I wouldn't say that this is quite there, but it's not far away. It's like an unbelievable story. So ultimately, September of 2019, Michael and Kristine, who are now divorced, are both arrested and charged on 4 counts of felony neglect, 2 counts of neglect of a child, 2 counts of neglect of a dependent. Now, why do they give those different counts, Allison? Like, why do they do that?
Well, because it's like an alternative, just in case the jury doesn't want to say that she was a child. They say that they neglected a dependent.
Right. And, you know, it's like, you've got this, you know, because like when they talk about the arrest, right? And I'm like, all right, how are they coming after them on the statute for a child when, crazy or not, you know, this kid was re-aged in a court of law. In the eyes of the law, Natalia is 22 years old. Like, that's facts. Like, they're like, and we didn't really touch upon that, but like, I just want everybody to understand. We kind of mentioned it, but when then that happened on June 22nd of 2012, again, Natalia's in the hospital. Okay. She gets no notice. She's not appointed a guardian ad litem, which typically, if anybody's like, and beyond that, so she has no idea that this is going on, nor does she have a representative. In guardian ad litems, at least in Illinois, are always lawyers. Like, I've never met a GAL that's not an attorney, and they represent the interests of the children. You know, you've got, and you typically have them in divorce situations where there's kids involved, and you've got a husband and a wife who are divorcing, and they have their own attorneys, and the courts oftentimes feel that it's prudent, and I agree with them, that the kids have somebody who's looking out for their best interest, because a lot of times, unfortunately, in divorces, grown-ups can't act like grown-ups, and they lose sight of the fact that the people that matter most are those little people that they are charged to care of, you know, to take care of and to raise and to provide them with a healthy and happy and safe environment. And people lose sight of that a lot when they're in the midst of a ugly, ugly divorce. So it makes sense for them to appoint a GAL, because all that GAL cares about are those kids and what's in the best interest of those kids, not of dad, not of mom. So that's why GALs are very important in the system, you know, and just like anything, you get good ones, you get bad ones, you know, I mean, it's like, it's just facts. But, you know, ultimately what goes down is that they get her re-aged, moving her in like an insane amount of years, from being born in 2003 to being born in 1989. And the judge does this without the benefit of having a hearing. And y'all know how I am about the due process thing. I don't like when there's no due process under the law. And this thing, there was zero due process, and it just massively changed the arc of this little girl's life, in the sense that she was literally like handcuffed as an adult. Like, it's like crazy that happened. So ultimately, these two get arrested. And what happens when you've got, like, from the state's perspective, Allie, what does the state do if they've got a couple of defendants? What do they have to do if they're not going to try them together?
Right. So they severed the cases because, and they did Michael first, because ultimately they want Michael to testify against Kristine, because Michael provides a lot more information. He was more forthcoming, and he is also ready to throw his ex-wife, who just destroyed his life, under the bus. So they go with Michael first, and, you know, there are motions that are filed, and we're going to get more into this tomorrow. So don't worry. Like I said, we kind of want to see where you guys are all at question wise and stuff like that. But there are motions filed, and ultimately the court decides that certain charges are beyond the statute of limitations, and that it's what's called res judicata as to the age. So although that first hearing, the state did argue, there was the first re-aging, there was no hearing. The state didn't have a chance a fair chance to to litigate the matter, and we weren't involved in all of this. But in 2017, the Manns tried to vacate and undo the re-aging, at which point there was a full hearing. All of the people who were on Natalia's side, as far as law enforcement, Natalia, the Manns, they all testified. And the court upheld and found that she was still born in 1989. So the judge held that because the state had notice of this and they didn't intervene and they didn't appeal it and they didn't do anything, that now they've lost the right to challenge her age and to even argue that, because initially it was, well, they hid her age because we told you there was this dentist that said that she was between 8 and 9. There was the endocrinologist who said she was between 9 and 11. And the Barnetts hid that when they went to go re-age her. And they hid that from the family doctor, who eventually they were able to convince to say that she was over 18, because they kept going to this guy with all of the horrible things she was doing and trying to kill them and trying to kill the kids and trying to burn down the house and telling them I'm an adult and, you know, all of these things. So they were not able to proceed on any of the charges as to when that she was a child. And her date of birth was offered at trial, which I think, in my opinion, that shouldn't have been allowed either, but it was. And somehow, some way, the jury found Michael not guilty.
Yeah, it was crazy because, I mean, there were motions in limine. They excluded a lot, so they weren't allowed to say the word child.
I'm sorry. Let me clear this up because I think I was unclear. When I say they hid all of this, that was the Barnetts. The Barnetts didn't tell anybody when they re-aged her that there were these other doctors who said that she, you know, that she still had, what was it, 12 baby teeth when she was in 2011, and that the initial endocrinologist said she was between the ages of 9 and 11. That's who hid that information. So the court didn't know it. The state didn't know it. Nobody had that information at their fingertips. So basically the argument is that the Barnetts committed fraud on the court. And I don't know, I you know, just to give you a taste of, you know, one of the arguments advanced by the state was essentially that, I wanted to read this one piece that
is on the thing that I have here.
Oh, what is that you have up there?
This is the order relating to the petition that the Manns had filed, where basically the court said, look, I hear you, but it's not my jurisdiction. Can't help you, type thing. So that's that thing.
Well, no, I was gonna, and now I don't know what I did with it.
This is the order granting the defendant. Is this the one you wanted? The motion to dismiss in part?
It's the, hold on, let me grab it.
No, while you're doing that, but like Miku, if I'm saying your name right, Miku's headphones, I know that it was up there. It's a really good analogy, but yeah, it's like that is the equivalent to when the state does that, like when the prosecution withholds evidence like that, which, like when Alice and I are talking about the Delphi case and we're talking about the Franks hearing and we're talking about omissions of things that are kept out, which if the court was informed of, very well may have changed the court's decision on whether or not, in a criminal sense, whether or not they had probable cause. Here, what happened is that they withheld all the information that would have given the judge pause to be like, oh, well, wait a second. You got this one doctor sitting here saying that, you know, she's an 18, 19-year-old kid, but you've got these two other doctors and a dentist saying that she's a child, you know? So, I mean, you could see how big that would have been had they provided that information, and then withholding it is shitty. And it is a fraud on the court, you know? So, I mean, it's a shame that the mans didn't file that in the proper jurisdiction, because had that been vacated, like them being able to go after Michael, like, you know, because they interview the foreperson of the jury, and so they show these two sides. They show Michael, who did have very good attorneys. His attorneys were excellent. You know, I loved all those scenes in that where, you know, show when Michael leaves and his lawyer's like, man, you know, I get his confidence, and I'm happy that he feels confident, but like I need to make sure this guy understands that you never know what a jury's going to do. That, you know, sometimes the state can have a shit case and they can win. Sometimes the state can have a great case and they can lose. You just never know what's going to, like it's that thing where you always have to try to prepare your client for the worst, and you also have to try to be realistic about it. They had so many type of like really effective procedural attacks. I think it bolstered their confidence in terms of moving towards trial. Like, we don't even know if an offer was made, you know, like I don't know, because those particular charges would have landed him in jail. I think they said max penalty would have been 16 years, right? Like,
I thought they said that. Well, we'll double check on the max minimum, but that was definitely mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. I remember the word 16 years coming out. But you know, it's like things like, and it's what I'm always talking about with people that love to watch trials, that if you're not watching the pretrial hearings, if they're showing them, or if you're not paying attention to what happens in pretrial hearings, you're missing the war. You're missing evidence that the court has deemed, for whatever reason, and there's various reasons, they're not going to allow to be admitted into evidence. So the jury never hears them. And we have things like, they're not allowed to call her a child. They're like, somehow, I don't know how they slipped in that birth date. Because like, as soon as they did that, like you can't call her a child, you can't call her an adult. Like, they weren't allowing the DNA results to come in. Like, nothing that was relating to her age was allowed to come in, but somehow the judge let him ask Natalia on the stand what year she was born. And she said the 1989 thing, you know? So like, when the jury goes back and they really only, like, we're back there for like 2 hours, like max. Like, when you and I were watching, I was like, wow, you know, they ordered pizza. Looks like they're really deliberating for a long time. And, you know, and then they get the call. They're like, yeah, the jury's in. The lawyer's like, oh yeah, let me go vomit.
3 hours.
Yeah, it was like 2-3 hours. And, you know, I was like, wow, I thought they made it seem like they deliberated a lot longer than that. And so they end up going back. You know, of course, they make it look like, I call it like, oh, they found him guilty because he's weeping, you know, and then they show him outside of the courtroom. You could tell immediately that, you know, he had prevailed. And, you know, but when he was coming out, he looked like he had lost, you know, but then Allison's like, well, why is he in custody? I'm like, well, he was out on bond. Like, they're still going to have to sentence him. I don't know that they would take him into custody immediately, but whatever the case may be, he was, you know, found not guilty, which doesn't mean he's innocent.
Right. So then we're waiting for Kristine. We're like, all right, well, now they're going to, we were like, okay, this was a dry run. They're going to charge the mom. They've got all this other shit on the mom. And then they tell us that they dismiss the charges against mom.
Yeah. They do it in like, you know, like the post, like in the little notes at the end of the last episode. Oh, by the way, the charges against Kristine were dropped or dismissed. I'm like, what? You know, but we're going to,
but I do want to this is what I wanted to let people know. And we're going to get into more of all of this, you know, on the full live that once we've finished all the episodes. But the state argued in their appeal, the state believes it can prove that the Barnetts exploited the courts to fraudulently change Natalia's age so they could conceal the illegality of their abandonment. Through tremendous effort and time, the state has finally obtained enough evidence that it believes proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Natalia is still a minor today, that she always was, and that the Barnetts always knew it. The trial court misapplied the law to once again erect a barrier to protect the Barnetts and unjustly block the state from proving Natalia's true age. The state cannot hold the Barnetts accountable for their criminal conduct if this issue is not addressed and correctly decided prior to trial. So, you know, they made the argument as aptly as they could. They just made it a little too late.
Yeah, they did. And it's a shame, you know, because that Kristine bitch, man, like she's like the physical beatings, and like I don't care how many it was. I don't care if it was one. I don't care if it was like one, like putting one finger on that kid and abusing that kid, having her stand up against that wall for 8-9 hours. Like the psychological and physical torture that poor kid went through, like with these people, and like this guy, like standing idly by, just watching it all take place.
Right.
Like he's just like
still crying that he's a victim. And I believe he was a victim to a certain extent, but that nothing that actually forgave or has any bearing on how he treated and what he did and didn't do. I mean, yeah, she was definitely psychologically abusive to him, and she was horrible, but
what a spineless turd, though, you know?
Yeah,
like what exactly. like dude, I mean, I can't relate to that at all, because it would be a cold day in hell, like for that, like that to happen on my watch. Like it would never happen on my watch, but I'm obviously you know, a much better man than that guy. But you know, it's like I can't even fathom that, you know, like him just sitting there watching her beat the child, watching her just torture the child, watching her like just interrogate this kid, you know. And it's like we keep having the conversation, and what we're going to get into when we start getting into the legalities of it. And again, like motive never has to be proven. And at this point, there are no more criminal cases, but we're going to get into why. We want to get into the nuts and bolts of how these two people seemingly have escaped any kind of justice.
I think at least he went through the process. At least he went through the process and was really at risk of going to prison. She just skated. And I cannot understand why they didn't charge her with fraud in the changing of the name. Like, what about perjury just there? You know, and you know, we're going to get through some of these documents, because that ends up being like their downfall. It was like, why didn't you guys do something, you know, earlier? Why didn't you get involved earlier? That you could have done something. But for the court, what's just really bizarre is that the re-aging was denied. Like, that is, to me, it was that the court trying to protect itself. Like, we effed up, and now we're not going to say that we effed up.
Like, I mean, you know, that happens. You know, there's CYAs. Like, I don't know what, you know, where that judge was in terms of like, is he the chief judge? I have no idea where that guy stands, but yeah, judges are going to take care of other judges, and they're not going to hammer a guy. I mean, the guy didn't have a hearing, and he changed this kid's age like 13 years or whatever. It was something that's insane. You know, I agree. I don't think he's a victim at all. I think he's a giant piece of shit. I think he's a narcissistic piece of shit. Like that one little clip of him. Like, oh, do you want, like that one clip said all you need to know. Oh, do you want the crying one or do you want the other one? Like, do you remember that?
I do.
Like, so all of that was bullshit. This guy's such a weasel, man. Like, oh man, like that guy. I don't know, man. Here's the good thing that's going to come from this is that these two people are not going to be able to go anywhere for the rest of their lives without people thinking that they are absolute pieces of shit.
I don't know how no one has taken, I don't know what the age of her other two children are, but how is the state of Indiana saying that she is this horrific, horrible mother, and they're not taking her kids away from her?
I don't know. To what? Make them wards of the state? Give them to the dude? Like, he hasn't seen, like, she took the kids away from him. And then when when his oldest got old enough, he came in, he's living in his basement, you know, but that was because she screwed him out of his money. You know, I don't think it's because he thinks his dad's like anything, no great shakes. You know, that poor kid sitting in his dad's basement, genius sitting in his dad's basement, like living in hell, you know, like living this whole thing. Like that kid's like a massive victim. Like all the kids are victims in this, none more than Natalia, obviously. But like, man, it's like, it's just like, yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, we're gonna dig into the criminal side of it, because I found it fascinating and I found it super depressing, you know. And it's like, it's funny watching that, you know. I'm rooting for the defense attorneys, but like, I'm like super upset that the guy didn't get convicted. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, like these guys are good defense attorneys. They're doing their job. This is exactly what you want the defense attorney to do. They're going to put forth the best case that they can, you know. And you never hear that lawyer saying, I believe him or I don't believe him, because it doesn't matter. You know, like that lawyer, like he never, like Michael's lawyer never says those words, because like I tell you guys all the time, that does not matter for us doing our jobs, whether or not we believe them or don't believe them. We have a job, we have a task at hand. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in, file the proper motions, and argue the case, and we'll let the jury decide. And like I was starting, and I got off track, but like the foreperson, she's like, you know, she said, when we all went in and did the straw poll, we all knew that he was guilty, which is why I want to dig through the statute. And like, we're going to try to figure out what the jury was looking at in the statute, to where she makes the statement. She's like, we all know this guy's guilty, but are we going to have to let him walk? We're going to have to let him walk, right? I can't believe we're going to have to let this guy walk. So they knew he was guilty, but they followed the law. So we're going to pull up those statutes on the next live. We're going to kind of dig through those and see how that happened. Like, see exactly what had to have occurred. We were trying diligently to get the transcripts. Like, we really wanted to read the transcripts of the trial, because that would obviously give us a lot more information, because that's one thing that the Discovery ID /Max thing does not show. Like, you don't get it. Obviously, there's no, as we know from Indiana, except on one occasion, they don't allow cameras in the courtroom. So we didn't get to see any of it. But so, all right, y'all, that's going to wrap it for this part of it. We want to give shout outs. And I promised Shay that we got a nice little sweet Christmas gift that she asked us to please not open until we run a live. So here it is, Shay. She's wonderful. She's a ride or die. This is her podcast. She's one of our great friends in the industry. We love her. All right. So Allie, she's going to come up. I'm going to let Allie open it. And she says, open on the live. So we're following directions. I'm excited to see what it is. All right. Come here. Get in.
I'm in.
Oh, no. Come over here.
I'm good enough.
Dude, get over here.
I'll stand behind you.
You're way too beautiful to be behind me. Everyone would rather see you. Trust me. Believe me when I tell you this. All right. Get up here. Why are you hiding?
I'm sitting.
Can you see her? Okay, there she is. Aw.
Oh, you want me to open it?
Yeah, open it up on the camera.
Jeez. Oh, this beautiful stuff.
Yeah. All right, do we have any guesses what it is? Wait, do you want to shake it first? No noises.
I broke it.
I broke it. Oh, no. Oh my God.
It's take the thing down.
Oh my God, that's
How
amazing.
Is that even a thing?
That is the coolest thing. Yes. Hold on, I gotta take this share screen off. Oh my God, that is
a Bob Mata bobblehead.
Wait, I'm removing Allie. She's up here. Wow, Shay, that is freaking awesome. Oh my God, that is. How did you do that? You were right. Like, I was like, what could she possibly have gotten us that she wanted us to open our live? This is like probably the coolest thing I've ever gotten. Sorry, babe. Thank you, Shay. This is amazing. Awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. It is so great. Did you make this but like, how did you, like, I'll have to get the deets on that. That is amazing. Thank you so much. That is phenomenal. When we get the good set built for, and just a reminder, y'all, we got the new show coming. It's imminent. We're going to be doing a daily true crime review and preview of every day. It's going to be a daily in the morning. It's called The Morning Drop. Mandy and Stevie, who they do all of they're kind of our brains behind how our show looks. Stevie and Mandy, Stevie does all the thumbnails. He's amazing. Mandy's done a couple of the emails or the thumbnails. They're amazing too. And we just love them. And they actually came up with the concept. It's like a 50s diner theme. We're going to get the set. We're doing the whole set. We're doing the whole damn thing, but it's going to be daily for about 20 to 30 minutes every morning. And we're going to let you all know what went on the day before in the court system and in the true crime world and what we can expect that day moving forward. So we think it's going to be great. We're really excited about it.
Take that thing out.
Oh, okay. Wait, should we take it out of the box? It's a collectible.
All right.
So we're super excited about that. We actually want to start right after New Year, but like I decided to go like all out and get the set. So we're going to make the set look like a 50s diner. So it's going to be super dope. And we're going to give you just facts like we always do. So, all right, Shay, again, thank you. This is so sweet. I love it so much. All right, I'm going to go real quickly. Jedi, always. I already thought you were a member. So thank you for remembering. True Compass, who, of course, is Shay. We did open it. You didn't even have to pay me like $2. Like the $2 haul was unnecessary. This is unbelievable.
Open your present.
Denise, thank you for the comment. Let's see. I think we got most of the comments up. Oh, my boy Frank was in here. $2. Ukraine is tier 2 in the trafficking report.
Wow.
That I believe, brother. That I believe. I don't know if Frank's still here, man. Thank you for that $2 holla, brother. We got Desiree with a $5 holla. Happy New Year. Stevie made me a Happy New Year banner, but I had already started the live, so I didn't get it up. We'll have it up for the next live. And then another new member. What do you want to? Is that Gambizi? Gambiz? I think it's Gambiz. I'm going to go with that. If I butcher it, give me a phonetic spelling in the chat. All right, y'all. We hope that it was interesting. Like we said, we wanted to give you kind of the front end because we realized that some people maybe had not watched it, maybe didn't know what the case was about. So we wanted to give y'all kind of the heads up on what it's about. Now we're going to dig into the legal stuff on our next lives. If you guys do have questions, please ask them in the chats, like in between shows. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I think we're super close to 10,000. Like we're super close to 10,000. We'd love to hit that number. We've only been around for a hot minute, but we love you all. We hope that we're bringing like great content to you because we enjoy doing it. And, we like bringing just the facts because that's what we do. Happy New Year, all. We hope you guys had wonderful holidays. I hope they were healthy, happy, and filled with friends, family, and love. So we'll catch you on the next one. Oh, I'm going to be on STS tomorrow with Joel, Surviving the Survivor, talking Gacy. Like Joel's been dying to get into that. So make sure to check me out over there. And we love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging with us. And as always, without y'all, I'd just be an old man talking about an old case. So.